right, we're here at my tiny worm bin, and there's a couple things I want to talk about as we go through this worm bin. And one is, when is the best time of year to start a worm bin? And then the other thing we want to do is we want to check on the fast versus slow food that we put in here. And here is just a little piece of pumpkin chunk that I put in yesterday, and it's actually doing a good job of getting some mites out of here. So let me just get this one little worm out. And then we will put this to the side, rinse it, and then put it right back in. Looks like the worms really didn't have a chance to get to it. So that was actually the second piece of pumpkin I had put in here. And you can see in the middle, they ate right through this paper. So I think we're just going to use this as additional bedding. And I think right here is the outer portion of that pumpkin piece that we had put in here. It was probably about a week ago before I put that newest one in. So let's go ahead and look at the top. Again, you can see right here where that plastic was, a lot of moisture, and towards the edges, a lot more dry bedding. And again, that's because it is still warm here in Florida. We had a little bit of a cold snap, but it's still warm. So my air conditioner is just working hard and zapping the moisture right out of this bin. So inside here, we put in some fast food and slow food. We put in a whole broccoli stalk, which to me is slow food just because of how big it was. We also put in a whole banana peel, and that is definitely slow food. We put a lettuce stalk and a peach half, and then we also put a tomato top and little pieces of broccoli and a pepper top. So what we want to do here is see how much of each they've eaten, and it's been 14 days. Let's go ahead and flip this over. And oh wow, look at that. Lots of castings and lots of worms in here. Check that out. Now these are about 1,000 red wigglers, and right before we reset this bin, I counted them all out. So check them out. That's so cool. I love seeing that. But right in the middle there, they are really attacking the food and the bedding. And most likely that's because of all the moisture that's there. And I'm going to go ahead and mix up all this bedding after we check all the feeding zones. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was, when is the best time to start your worm bin? And right now it is actually Halloween Day. So wherever you are, your gardens are probably, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, winding down right now. And you're thinking about spring, maybe in March, maybe late February. So now is actually the perfect time to start a worm bin, because in about 4 to 5 months, your worm bin is going to have produced pure castings. So you'll go from something like this, which is about a month and a half old, to something like this, where it is just pure castings. I mean, isn't that amazing that we go from food scraps and shredded cardboard to these perfect worm castings? So right now, as you're kind of cleaning up your garden and getting rid of the garden debris and stuff, and you're going into a little bit of garden depression because the garden is over, now is the time to start thinking about a worm bin and kind of getting your excitement about the next spring on your mind, so that you can enjoy the winter months if you're not able to grow anything, and kind of garden with your worm bin. So this is some of the paper towel rolls that we have put in, and toilet paper rolls. So they're getting to that. And look at this little guy. This thing right here is a pepper top. So they eat all the flesh off, and then this part right here, the vascular part, they just take a little bit longer to get to. All right, so I'm not seeing anything on this side as far as food goes. I am seeing that this is a little bit drier than I want it to be, so I may have to put a bigger piece of plastic in here and may need to put some more wet foods in. Let's go over here and see if we can get to that broccoli stalk and see if there's any remnants left. I mean, it's been 14 days, so maybe all the slow food also got eaten up, because I'm not seeing any sign of that banana. I haven't been all the way over here to this edge. So let's keep digging in and see what we have here. Again, just a bunch more castings, more worms, that maybe from the first pile of worms I pulled up going this way. I'm definitely not feeling anything whole like the broccoli. Well, as I say that, here we go. Check this out. This, I think, is what is left of that broccoli stalk. So the inside certainly is fast food, and kind of the fibrous outside is slow food. So that thing was pretty sizable. I'm impressed with what they've done with it. And right here, looks like, yep, some more of it. And I don't know if you can see that, but that is a worm ball just kind of attached to this broccoli stalk right here. They are really going after it. So that is really cool. Really cool. And you can see all the castings that they've made out of it. When you put food like this directly on or on the bedding, which of course we're doing, they really eat both really well. I think the juices get into it, and then they eat the bedding along with the food scraps. Let's come over here and see if we have any sign of that banana peel. And I'm not even seeing any of it. That's pretty incredible. So the thing that lasted the longest was the broccoli stalk. And even that really didn't have a chance. So it's been 14 days, and I think 14 days is probably just a little bit too long to be going between feedings. And I think if I feed it a little bit more often, it'll help to get some more moisture in here too. So let me just go ahead and mix all this up, and then we'll come back to create our feeding zone.
I'm surprised they took care of that broccoli stalk.
I know. They were really...
Like in the past, we've put that in there, and it's been a while since
I think just because there's 1,000 worms in a small place, they're like, feed me. All right, so we've got our feeding zone. I'm going to put a little bit of bedding in, and let's start with our cardboard shreds. All right, so in goes a little bit of dry bedding right there for them. Every time I feed, I like to put a little bit more bedding in. Even if the bin is totally filled with bedding, I always like to put just a little bit more. So here is what we had in mind to feed. We've got some pumpkin chunks. We've got a whole corn cob. And then we've got some of their favorite fast foods like strawberry tops. We've got an apple, which is a little bit slower food. And then we've got some carrot pieces that are also fast foods. So in goes the whole ear of corn. Now this should be in here probably for a month or longer. And then we'll put some pumpkin pieces on the sides. And then we'll throw in our apple, strawberries, and carrots right there for them. The executive producer made a very good point. That's a pretty colorful fall feeding. I like it. So this is just some worm chow, which is just expired grains and flour, that kind of thing, from my pantry. And I like to use it. So as you're waiting for spring to come, go ahead and clean out your pantry and maybe make some worm chow. Next, we've got some used coffee grounds, just used coffee grounds and tea, and it's just another food source for them. So I like to add it in addition to all the food scraps I add, and it's a good way to get rid of my coffee grounds. And then finally, I used a little bit of pulverized eggshells, which I just grind up in my Magic Bullet blender. And this is just grit for their gizzards so they can help make their food that they eat a little bit smaller and help them digest it. So that right there is a pretty good feeding for 1,000 worms for about a week or two. Hopefully I'll get in here in about 7 days. So if you have less worms than this, then make sure that you're feeding a lot less than this. If you have more worms than this, then certainly you can double it if you have 2,000, triple it, etc., based on how many worms you have. But if you keep doing this, if you get a worm bin and you feed them just your food scraps throughout the winter, you are going to have a ton of castings ready to go for your seed starting mix and also for making your worm casting teas so that you can feed your garden throughout the spring and into summer. So now is a great time to start a worm bin in the Northern Hemisphere. And actually, I always say it's always a great time to start a worm bin. So if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, start a worm bin too. Because that newspaper seemed to be pretty used up, I'm just gonna put this packaging paper in here. And then I'm gonna put that little piece of pumpkin that we had on top before we rinsed it off. And by we, I mean the executive producer did. And then here we go. We're gonna put our plastic right here, which is gonna help us retain moisture because the air conditioning is just ripping it out. So I hope everybody's doing good. I hope your worm bins are doing well. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.